moment, I can tell I'm already addicted to this process. But before we celebrate, before we go forward and just completely lose ourselves in this moment, I need to get serious for a few minutes because I need to ask something of you. Now, I came here 10 months ago, and to me this was a dream job. This was a wonderful moment because I came here to do something special. I came here to be a part of something special, and over the last year, my experience has told me that I can't express to you enough how much everything that we are doing here has filled my expectations and my dreams. Higher education is at a little bit of an exciting, interesting, and maybe a little bit frightening moment right now. The world is changing around us. Globalization has opened our eyes to the fact that we have to know different parts of the world more deeply than we ever imagined was going to be the case. New media and new modes of delivery have pushed us, and new competitors that are coming from parts of the economy that we didn't even imagine would become competitive with higher education are looking over our shoulders and forcing us to innovate and change. And of course, even a new culture of expectation around customization. We have an entire generation of students who are growing up under the Google culture of just as part of the process understanding that the world can be customized around our consumer demands. And yet we as educators need to think deeply about how to meld that world, but at the same time also meld a world in which we cater to your needs, desires, wants, aspirations, and dreams. It's also an interesting and definitely frightening moment for the U.S. economy. And forgive me here for a moment because I have to get a little bit somber before I issue a more exciting charge. It's not just the economic crisis that troubles me. It's also a narrow-mindedness around the global economy. It's a little bit of a simplistic way of thinking about industrial policy, energy policy, global economic strategy. It's protectionism. It's even American arrogance about our role in the global economy and the extent to which we need other countries to be investing here. And worst of all, in Washington, D.C., over the last year I've noticed more than ever, it might be a somewhat broken political system that seems unwilling or unable to lead us out of what I do think is a real crisis. When I give talks about this around the country, people often say, yes, but we're Americans. We have been through crises before and we've worked our way out of it every time. And that's true. There's something wonderful about American optimism, American exceptionalism, the shining city on the hill notion, and I love that part of America. But I also worry, because this is the first time that we're trying to work out of this crisis after 30 years of the decimation of vocational education, after a long process of protectionism in which it's not just about protectionism in terms of trade, but also in terms of immigrant policies that send some of our most wonderful potential citizens packing home. And so I worry. But I came here to be part of something special, and this 10 months has taught me that that something special sits here in the middle of Washington, D.C., and it sits here in this room, and I'm looking out at what that special thing is. For about 40 years, business schools have followed a model of thinking more and more narrowly about what we do, and I think of it in some ways as the neoclassical economic revolution in American economics and economic thinking. But the crisis in 2000-2001 taught us we can't think about that anymore. And then more directly and more deeply, the crisis in 2008-2009 taught us that we can't just send students out into the market armed with great knowledge about building financial instruments, but not enough knowledge about how to think about the complexity of markets and the complexities of the global economy. And so it gave me great pride to join a school that thinks deeply about being at the center of business and society or business and politics, is just blocks from the nation's most powerful institutions, and is a part of a conversation that is deeply about these kinds of issues. But it's not just a school that leverages its real estate, it's also a school that 2 years ago took a leadership position in building ethics into the curriculum. Many business schools that I've been a part of in the past were hemming and hawing over the question of whether or not ethics should be a part of what we do, and this school didn't say that. This school actually said that's not even an interesting debate, because of course ethics is a fundamental part of leadership. Ethics and social responsibility are what we teach and what we do if we want to train great leaders of the future. And we're building a school that is built around that, and frankly, I inherited all of that. This work has been done by my wonderful colleagues who sit beside me. And I'd just like to take a moment, as we acknowledge everything that you and your families have done, I'd like to acknowledge everyone who has worked with us, who's on the stage with me today. Because to be honest, I'm just a messenger. These people have been building this and have had this in their minds for much longer than I've been here. This is a school that embraces the complexity of the global economy and thinks deeply about those kinds of issues. And it embraces a broader social scientific approach to how we think about critical thinking. Recently, somebody who's a part of the administrative team said to me that a CEO who was a part of our cyber board wrote, quote, "Understanding the importance of issues like sustainability and human rights in assessing its long-term viability and determining how a transaction should be structured is critical." And of course, we need technical, financial, legal skills to do that. But more than that, we also need an embrace of the understanding of local history, sociology, anthropology, religion, and an appreciation for universal human requirements. And I hope that this school has helped give you some of that breadth of thinking, that breadth of knowledge. And I think, in many ways, just the diversity of programs that are actually offered here speaks very well to that. Now to my charge. It's a little bit daunting to follow someone like Bernard Height. He already, you can see, is on his way to being a wonderful orator, and I can't hope to live up to that, but I can exhort you to do some of the things that he talked about. My charge is do not take this degree and just think about making a living. Think about making a difference. Change the world. That is what your license is, that is what your charge is, that is what your responsibility is. I think about the students that I've met since I came here. One student, one of the first students I met here, Shalom Madhavan, who unfortunately is not with us tonight because he had a death in the family. But I remember one of the early conversations I had with him. He came from New York, he worked at Bear Stearns. He had thought about a lot of other schools that were powerhouses in the finance world, and frankly, we're not so bad in the finance world ourselves. But he came here because he wanted to be a part of a Washington conversation about the regulatory environment and about the mistakes that were made. And I tucked that away in my mind and I thought, wow, that's an interesting decision, that's an interesting choice. And there's student after student that I've talked to who's interested in energy policy, who are interested in government contracting, who are interested in issues that are not just about the question of what the government's role in the economy is, but it's really about the question about what business's role in society is. Make no mistake about it. Business is the most important institutional structure in a capitalist economy and in the global economy today. And you all are going out into the world to be a part of the corporations that are going to guide that system. Do not ever let yourself think that I am some small cog in a corporate machine, because everything you do matters from this point forward. I think about Robert Brown, who brought us, he and his team of co-conspirators, and has brought us the Crossroads Conference. It was so wonderful for the school, and brought us people like Justin Lin as a keynote speaker. I think about the fact that we had Dominique Strauss-Kahn come in and we wanted to hear about the IMF. I think about the fact that when we wanted to have a conversation here about financial regulation, we had Chris Dodd come in and talk about this. And I think about the fact that President Obama was here to talk about his budget, or his issues with the budget. And I think about alums as well. People like Brian Herman. A couple of months ago, I was at an event for a company that I didn't even know that much about. It was a company that actually endows scholarships for people who are transitioning back from the military to an academic and then professional life beyond. And as I read about this company, I became more and more fascinated by what they do. Because it's a company that actually has built a product that saves lives out in the field. And then these guys have come back and endowed scholarships to actually help soldiers transition back to civilian life. And I thought, there are so many examples of what we're doing in training business leaders who are going out into the world to not just make a living, but to make a difference and to change the world. Now, in some ways, echoing some of what Bernard Haidt said, I'm going to quote my favorite orator, somebody who passed away a long time ago, but borrowed from George Bernard Shaw in Back to Methuselah, when he said, "Some see things the way they are and ask why. I dream things that never were and ask why not." I see some of you mouthing that along with me in the audience. You know that those are the words that were made famous by Bobby Kennedy. And what I want to ask you to do going forward is I want you to think about that. I want you to process it. I want you to live it. I want you to dream big things, do great things, and change the world. We are all very proud of you.